Monday.
I don't feel any extra pressure going in this week. For me, it is a beautiful mystery what happens down the line. But there'll be time when we meet that future. And right now, I'm just going to enjoy the present.
Stephen A.
Yes.
Your boy, Aaron Rodgers. Is he the quarterback with the most to lose?
I think so. Because I think that, to me, Aaron Rodgers is the greatest quarterback I've ever seen. From a talent perspective, he's the greatest ever. I just believe that. The Dan Marinos. And, I keep throwing up names in Max like a Dan Fouts. I loved Dan Fouts. I loved Ed Coryell with him and Charlie Joyner and Kellen Winslow Sr. and Chuck Muncie coming out of the back. I used to love watching San Diego throw the football with Dan Fouts when they were in San Diego. Now, when they went on the road in Cincinnati and, in god-awful temperatures and all of that stuff, I felt bad for them. You can't come from Southern California to go to Cincinnati for an AFC championship. You just can't do it. It's not fair. It's not fair to human beings. I mean, it's frostbite and all that other stuff. But here's the deal. You can pick any quarterback. I was a lifelong Steelers fan. Terry Bradshaw, Lynn Swann, John Stallworth, Franco Harris, Rocky Bly and the crew, me and Joe Green and L.C. Greenwood and those boys in the defense. Didn't matter. Aaron Rodgers is the greatest quarterback from a talent perspective that I've ever seen. Doesn't have the greatest resume to go to Tom Brady, but he's the greatest quarterback that I've ever seen. And to me, to be in this postseason, to be knocking at the doorstep of a Super Bowl berth, again, you haven't been back since you won it all in 2010. You're age 37 now, 48 touchdowns and 5 interceptions for the regular season. You are about to win the league MVP. You are going up against Tom Brady. It's not just about you needing to win. It's about who you'd lose to. And losing to Tom Brady at 43 years of age, switching conferences, don't have Bill Belichick anymore, etc. And you go out there and you lose to him. To me, that would be a very, very big deal. I'm looking at Mahomes, and you look at Josh Allen, and you look at Tom Brady. I mean, Tom Brady's got 6 rings, 9 trips to the Super Bowl. You made it this far without Bill Belichick, etc. To me, Aaron Rodgers, the way that they've looked, the way they looked last week, the way they've looked for the most part throughout this regular season, with the exception of going up against Tampa Bay and Tampa Bay, you look at Aaron Rodgers and the way he has balled. If suddenly you wet the bed in the NFC Championship game, it would be a bad look to me. And I just look at him
at
in
Lambeau.
terms of this week at Lambeau, first time NFC Championship game at Lambeau since Brett Favre. This game right here, this weekend, just these quarterbacks, I think Aaron Rodgers is the one with the most to lose out of all of them.
Well, I would agree if we were limiting it to that game. If it was Rodgers or Brady, I'd say Rodgers has more to lose. And Brady probably has the most to gain out of everybody at this point, because if he gets to the Super Bowl, getting by Aaron Rodgers this time without Belichick, it's an amazing actual enhancement of his already best ever legacy. I don't think Rodgers has the most to lose, though. He also has something to gain. He can enhance his legacy, too, because Rodgers' talent is so absurd that if he winds up with 2 rings or gets by Brady finally, when they're on comparable teams. If anything, probably the Bucs have a little more talent, but Rodgers has more continuity. They're on comparable teams. Okay, Brady, you're not just coming out of the AFC. What would happen if you had to face Rodgers? Rodgers has something to gain there. See, I went head-to-head with Brady. We're both old, and I beat him. The guy with the most to lose is Patrick Mahomes, because you think Rodgers is number 1 ever from a talent perspective. And I would say he was until I saw Patrick Mahomes. And it is close, but I think Patrick Mahomes is number 1 from a talent perspective. And one thing we can agree on, I'll bet you everyone will agree on this, combination of talent and situation, Mahomes is number 1 all time. Talent and situation, Joe Montana and Tom Brady, they had a lot of early success. But you can look and say, as great as they are, that's decision-making. Yeah. It's not like they had the wheels or, the most accurate passers or biggest arms ever. It wasn't like when you first saw Brett Favre, oh, my God. They were situations, great quarterbacks in great situations. But talent, no one was thinking number 1. Peyton Manning had a slower start, let's be honest. Aaron Rodgers wasn't in the best situation all those years. Neither was Brett Favre. But Patrick Mahomes comes in with the kind of talent that since day one you go, oh, that guy might be. He's in the conversation, most talented dude ever. And in a situation with receivers everywhere and a great coach, Stephen A., do you realize he started for 3 years? This is his 3rd consecutive championship. championship game he's
Yeah.
played in.
But do you
He's
think
won an MVP, a Super Bowl MVP. Molly, what I'm saying is no one's ever started his career like this, ever. He's on pace to be the best and the greatest.
Fine.
I'm with you, but he's not healthy.
Well,
That's why I feel like this year's a little bit of an outlier. He deserves an excuse.
If he plays.
if he plays, fair enough. But I got one better for both of y'all. Who has ever started out their career with the weapons that Patrick Mahomes has had available to him?
Yeah.
Situation.
That's
There
what
is
Max
no
is
one.
saying, yeah.
And now listen, we can look at Mark Super Duper, Mark Clayton with Dan Marino. You know, we can look at that. I guess that's a comparison or what have you. But what I would say to you is that when you look at Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, Travis Kelce, McCole Hardman,
Andy Reid.
Reid, Eric Bieniemy, nobody has had that available to them. So to me, without throwing any kind of shade on Patrick Mahomes, because he is great and there's a level of greatness that you just can't deny. When we talk about the argument of who's the greatest, his ceiling compared to Aaron Rodgers' ceiling, Aaron Rodgers has never had that. We just lamented a few months ago how Aaron Rodgers threw passes to Tavon Austin, and it was the first time in Aaron Rodgers, they highlighted how Drew Brees had thrown over 600 passes to a first-round wide receiver, and Tom Brady had thrown, or Drew Brees 800, and Tom Brady over 600, and all of these quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers throwing a ball to a first-round pick at the wide receiver spot had 2 pass attempts in his career. Come on now.
Stephen A., they drafted a quarterback. That was his help this
That's what I'm
season.
just saying.
This is what I'm saying.
And if you take Aaron Rodgers,
situation.
well, yeah, I understand the situation, but in the end, Max, even though you're talking about situational, I'm saying to you, when we talk about Rodgers, the quarterback with the most to lose, I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of the kind of things that's going to be said about him. The way you are so hyperbolic about Patrick Mahomes. Listen, that ain't going nowhere if he loses.
No, but this is my point.
Not going anywhere.
Mahomes,
You'll be talking about him next year.
Mahomes will fall a little back to the pack. Right now, he's starting his career like he's the Michael Jordan of football. It's never happened before. Right? Tom Brady is the greatest. Before that, it was Joe Montana. But looking at them with our eyeballs, we never said, like, what do we always used to say back then? You brought up the Miami Dolphins. We used to say, could you imagine if Dan Marino had Bill Walsh and everybody, Jerry Rice and everybody in San Francisco, what he would do? Because Marino's talent jumped out at you. Peyton Manning, could you imagine if he had Bill Belichick like Tom Brady does? Same thing with Rodgers, because their talent looked different, right? What I'm saying about Mahomes is he's Marino, he's Peyton, he's Rodgers with everything. That's never happened before in football.
You can say that, and I would tell you that Aaron Rodgers would be Patrick Mahomes, maybe even more with Tyreek Hill and Kelce and the rest of those crew. All I'm saying is that
we'll never know.
Listen, okay, we'll never know, but here's what we do know. We do know, because of the greatness that you have highlighted about Patrick Mahomes, he ain't fallen, because we're looking at him in his youth. And the fact, listen, this is football. Anything can happen on any given Sunday. You lose one game, we'll be talking about Patrick Mahomes the minute the season's ready to start, because he's that dude. With Aaron Rodgers being 37 years of age, with the clock ticking, with Valdez Scantling, with Devontae Adams, with Lazard and those boys available to him, with him looking the way that he's looking right now, and about to win league MVP. This could be it. We know it's not going to be it with Mahomes. Andy Reid, listen, once upon a time, Andy Reid was talking about retiring. You ain't think about that now. Extension and all that. Why? Because you got Patrick Mahomes adding years.
New life.
Time's running out.
Well, okay, that I understand the loss, because this may be his best chance. Although last year they won 13 games, they got better.
Yeah,
and they're not going to draft the quarterback next year. They may get better next year.
We all knew they wouldn't beat San Francisco last year.
But what I'm saying is they might be better next year than they are this year. He has a lot to gain, because if Rodgers wins another Super Bowl, now in terms of GOAT conversations, we start to say
I'm not
his
questioning
talent
He hasn't
and
been
multiple
there
rings.
11 years now,
I'm not questioning that he has nothing to gain. The question was, who's the one with the most to lose?
Who's the highest paid in
Who's
the league?
one with the most to lose?
Mahomes.
Yeah.
Who's the most valuable player in terms of who you could trade who for? Mahomes, given his age and everything. Who's the reigning Super Bowl MVP?
Mahomes.
Who's the best player in football over the
defeat
last
your
3
own
years?
argument.
Mahomes. He's the lead dog. You got the most to lose.
This is the same guy that sat up there and said this dude was more valuable in sports than LeBron James. And all of a sudden, if he loses this one game Sunday, everything falls back into the
smaller
back.
sample sizes in
Ears
football.
over there.
No.
Less of a margin for error for a guy.
Your own
Mahomes'
argument
level.
against you. I'll leave you with this. If Aaron Rodgers does lose on Sunday,